I only shoot and score, then you score, then will come. 1 month ago, we made this video talking about how the Pittsburgh Penguins made themselves a tryout signing that was one of my favorites on the entire year. You could tell from the title, you can tell from the thumbnail, it was Jesse Puljujarvi who made his way over to the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in the AHL. And ever since then, ever since seeing JP suiting up in the American Hockey League, seeing him suit up in a tryout capacity, we now have ourselves the news on February 4th, 2024, that he is back in the NHL because the Pittsburgh Penguins have now signed Puljujarvi to a 2-year deal. He is officially back. This is not with the AHL Penguins. This is the NHL Penguins who have signed JP because, spoiler alert, he's actually been really good in the AHL. And you could debate whether or not that's surprising or not, but that is the status update. Let's go out there and see some of the press from the Pittsburgh Penguins themselves. They have signed JP to a 2-year contract. It runs through the end of 24-25 with an AAV of $800,000. So this is a $1.6 million contract that Jesse Puljujarvi has signed. The 2-year contract runs through the end of the 24-25 season and carries an AAV of $800,000. So this is a $1.6 million total contract, and if you go over to the Penguins and their website, let's go out there and read what they have to say in regards to JP. The Pittsburgh Penguins have signed forward Jesse Puljujarvi to a 2-year contract. It was announced today by President of Hockey Operations and GM Kyle Dubas. The 2-year deal runs through the end of 24-25, AAV of $800,000. Puljujarvi, who is 25 years old, signed a PTO with the Penguins on December 10th and has played in 13 games with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins of the American Hockey League this season, tallying 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points, and a +8. Yeah, he actually produced pretty well in the AHL this year. He's slightly under a point per game, which honestly, considering the surgery that he had and the amount of recovery time it took for him to get back into game action, that's kind of impressive. The 6'4", 201-pound forward spent the 2022-2023 season split between the Oilers and the Hurricanes, tallying 5 goals, 11 assists, and 16 points in 75 games. So not a great point production metric in the slightest. In total, he has recorded 51 goals, 63 assists, and 114 career points in 334 NHL games with Edmonton and Carolina. Puljujarvi has also registered 3 goals, 3 assists, and 6 points in 27 NHL playoff games. He set his career offensive highs in 21-22 with the Oilers with 14 goals and 22 assists for 36 points in 65 games played. The Finnish forward played parts of 4 seasons with Karpat in the Liga, Finland's top pro league, gathering the amount of points that he did, and then it goes over into where he was born and all the junior tournaments that he was a part of. Initially drafted in the 4th overall spot in the 2016 draft by the Edmonton Oilers. So this is a fantastic piece of news. When you go over to Puljujarvi and you see just the progression, you know? Part of the reason I'm super happy to make this video is because we've been kind of chronicling Puljujarvi's career ever since the guy was drafted. Like, seriously, we were making videos back in 2015-16 debating whether or not the Vancouver Canucks could get a guy like Puljujarvi if they were able to draft that high in the draft. Spoiler alert, Puljujarvi went 1 pick before the Vancouver Canucks selected Olli Juolevi, but still, there was a conversation to be had there. Edmonton took themselves the Big Finn. Puljujarvi was supposed to be the Curry to McDavid's Wayne Gretzky. It was kind of a funny comparison seeing the long-term effects of Edmonton Oilers dynamic duos, but Puljujarvi was supposed to be that guy. He was never really that good. He was in the NHL. He yeeted back over to Finland. There was already some controversy as to whether or not he'd actually return, and then, spoiler alert, he did. He had a great season in 21-22, and then his deployment just pummeled down the drain, and his production went down the drain as well the next season. 14 points, 58 games played, and then he had the surgery in the offseason, which actually prevented him from signing until December. He had the same surgery in the summer that I'm pretty sure Patrick Kane had, and everybody was talking about Kane and how, oh, that surgery, like, no NHL player has come back and actually had a sustained career after that. hip replacement, and now for Patrick Kane, I mean, sure, he's injured right now, which is not ideal, but he came back and he did really good things with the Red Wings. So for Puljujarvi, the fact that he came back in the AHL and had 9 points in 13 games, he looked really good. There's a lot of potential here, and it's a feel-good story for everybody involved. The Penguins are getting themselves a forward at $800,000 a year that hopefully can fit somewhere in their middle six. If Puljujarvi is able to reunite some of that 5v5 production that he was able to get with the Oilers a few years ago, then this could be a really good addition to a Pittsburgh Penguins team that has been slowly creeping themselves back up into that wild card race. Now, there are a few extra things that we can talk about, like this, for example. This is the JFresh Hockey post from earlier today. Puljujarvi signed to a 2-year, $800,000 AAV contract by the Penguins, is a two-way forechecking winger whose above-average speed and size is counteracted by a total lack of finishing touch and passing ability. You can see that his even-strength defensive number is at 91%. He is one of the top 9 percentile players in the NHL, or at least he was last year. His defense, this red line on the right graph that you're looking at, was always one of the best parts of his game. He has always been a consistent 5v5 defensively minded, responsible two-way winger. And even though his finishing stinks, even though his playmaking, you could very well say, took a turn for the worse over the past few years, this is still a guy that can provide value to an NHL roster, just maybe not with the same gusto that a 4th overall selection in the 2016 draft would imply that he has. Sure, a lot of people said, oh yeah, 2016, you talk about the Matthewses and the Laine's. Part of the reason this was really interesting is because, if you remember back in 2016, in that World Junior tournament that Puljujarvi had, him and Laine were just so gosh darn dominant that there was a period around the January-ish mark of 2016 where you could very well say that Puljujarvi should have been 2nd overall, above Laine and above Dubois. In fact, the idea that Dubois even going 3rd overall to Columbus was already a pretty big shock in the first place, especially considering that Jarmo Kekalainen was the GM of Columbus and he passed on the big Finnish winger to take PLD. But this is that World Junior tournament we were talking about in their draft-eligible seasons. Puljujarvi, Aho, and Laine were so good. Aho had just gotten recently drafted in 2015 by the Hurricanes. Patrick Laine was draft eligible. Puljujarvi was draft eligible. You don't ever see guys put up over 10 points in a World Junior Showcase before they're even drafted. And Puljujarvi did that to such an extreme capacity. He had more assists than most other players in the tournament had points. The only guys who had more points than Puljujarvi had assists were his line mates Sebastian Aho and Laine. They were so good in that 2016 Finnish Gold World Junior Championship Showcase. So for Puljujarvi to put himself on the map back then, and then have the career that he did, where there was some controversy, there were some up and downs, it's why I'm super excited to be thinking about Puljujarvi as an NHL player once again, and seeing him with the Pittsburgh Penguins jersey, hopefully playing with Sidney Crosby. Like, this could be really cool. Imagine a Crosby-Gensel-Puljujarvi line. If Puljujarvi can cash in on the line mates he's got and actually start producing points, let's say he finishes off the year with 15 to 20 points, that would be incredible. Would that not be just such a feel-good story for a guy who has gone through the ringer, who had to go through double hip replacement surgery, and who just kind of got, I don't want to say booed out of Edmonton. I know a lot of Oilers fans loved Puljujarvi as a person and a personality. His interviews were always so funny. But now, I mean, hopefully we're able to see actual on-ice productivity in the NHL from JP as a member of Pittsburgh. Crosby, carry this man, please. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to the Pittsburgh Penguins signing Puljujarvi to a 2-year deal. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.